There is a hidden American society where playing a competitive game of softball is a spiritual crime, yet aggressively rollerblading to work is completely fine. We are ripping away the quaint, butter-churning stereotypes to expose the 50 most absurd, tightly regulated, and brilliantly bizarre laws secretly governing the Amish community. You are about to discover a highly complex, loophole-filled world so obsessed with absolute uniformity that even the buttons on your shirt are a matter of intense public scrutiny. 1. This one is going to completely make your jaw drop. In some deeply conservative districts, preventive dentistry is considered far too expensive and worldly. So instead of getting braces or filling cavities for decades, many Amish young adults voluntarily have every single one of their perfectly healthy teeth pulled out in their early 20s. They get fitted for a complete set of dentures and never have to worry about a toothache again. It is a wildly extreme, incredibly brutal form of financial planning. 2. If you try to bring a standard deck of playing cards to an Amish game night, it will be immediately confiscated. The classic 52-card deck is strictly outlawed because of its deep historical association with gambling and worldly vice. However, the Amish absolutely love a highly competitive evening around the table. Their brilliant loophole? They are wildly obsessed with games like Uno or Rook. Because those cards just feature numbers and colors instead of kings and queens, they are considered spiritually safe. Could you survive your family game night playing nothing but intense rounds of Uno? 3. The Amish transportation rules are a masterclass in arbitrary loopholes. In many strict orders, riding a bicycle is completely forbidden. The reasoning is that bicycles provide too much mobility, tempting people to travel far from the community and stray from their tight-knit church. However, kick scooters are perfectly fine. Because you have to physically push a scooter with your foot, it limits how far you can practically go before collapsing from exhaustion. It is a brilliant, entirely exhausting way to keep the neighborhood intact. 4. Do not expect to see an Amish farmer baby-talking a golden retriever in a little sweater. In their world, animals exist exclusively to work, provide food, or serve a distinct agricultural purpose. Dogs are there to hunt or guard the property, and cats are kept strictly outside to aggressively murder mice. Treating an animal like a pampered member of the family is seen as a bizarre, wasteful misdirection of human affection. Bringing a farm dog inside to sleep on the bed would be considered utter madness. 5. The Amish relationship with technology is not about rejecting the modern world entirely. It is about controlling its impact on the family. Having a telephone inside the house is forbidden because it interrupts family time and brings the outside world straight into the living room. So, their solution is the telephone shanty. Families will share a tiny wooden shed at the end of the driveway or out in a field that houses a single phone. If it rings, you have to sprint across a freezing field just to take a message. 6. There are no secret Amish rock bands jamming in barns after hours. Playing any musical instrument is strictly forbidden. The logic here is deeply tied to their core philosophy of Gelassenheit, which means submission and humility. Mastering a guitar or a piano draws attention to the individual and makes them stand out from the crowd. It fosters pride, which is considered a massive spiritual roadblock. The only music allowed is communal singing in church, strictly a cappella, where everyone's voice blends together. Nobody gets a solo, and nobody gets to be a star. 7. Posing for a selfie in Amish country is a massive violation of their rules. They strictly prohibit posing for photographs, viewing it as a clear violation of the biblical ban on making graven images. But more importantly, taking a photo freezes a moment in time and emphasizes physical appearance, which directly inflates the ego. If you look at Amish history, you will not find family portraits hanging on their walls. They want to be remembered for their actions and their faith, not their faces. Honestly, is our modern obsession with perfectly filtered photos really that much healthier? 8. You will never see an Amish person wearing neon green or hot pink. Their wardrobe colors are highly regulated by the local bishop. Patterns, stripes, and bright colors are entirely outlawed because they draw the eye and create unnecessary competition among neighbors. Acceptable colors are usually muted solids like navy blue, deep plum, forest green, and black. By eliminating fashion trends, they eliminate jealousy. You never have to worry about whether your outfit is out of style because the style quite literally has not changed in over 300 years. 9. Keeping your pants up is surprisingly complicated when belts are totally illegal. Amish men are forbidden from wearing belts with large buckles, again tying back to the historical association with military uniforms and flashy wealth. The only acceptable way to hold up trousers is by wearing suspenders. But even then, there are rules. Some strict orders dictate exactly how the suspenders must cross in the back, or whether they can have any elastic in them at all. It is a level of micromanagement over menswear that makes high-fashion designers look incredibly laid back. 10. Amish women never cut their hair. Not a trim, not a layering, absolutely nothing, from birth until death. It is kept meticulously pinned up and hidden beneath a prayer covering at all times. The rule is based on scripture stating a woman's hair is her glory, but displaying it publicly is considered dangerously alluring and proud. For the men, haircuts are equally rigid, usually a bowl cut that falls right to the earlobe. The bishop essentially acts as the community's lead barber, setting the precise length allowed to ensure nobody gets too creative with their personal style. 11. The famous teen period known as Rumspringa is not the wild booze-fueled reality show you think it is. Yes, Amish youth get a temporary pass to experience the modern world before officially joining the church. But for most, going wild just means buying a smartphone, wearing a pair of modern sneakers, or taking a ride in a Honda Civic instead of a buggy. It is less about rebellion and more about making a conscious choice to accept the strict Amish life. Still, could you imagine your biggest teenage rebellion being the secret purchase of denim jeans? 12. If you hate doing homework, you might actually envy Amish kids because their formal education permanently stops after the 8th grade. In 1972, the Supreme Court actually ruled that the Amish are exempt from compulsory high school attendance. The community believes that anything beyond basic reading, writing, and math leads to worldly pride and pulls youth away from agricultural life. High school and college are strictly forbidden. You learn to farm, you build, and that is your curriculum. Honestly, does memorizing trigonometry really prepare you for the real world anyway? 13. You might think an Amish buggy is just a boring black box on wheels, but the color actually acts as a strict gang sign for different sects. While the old order Amish drive black buggies, the Byler Amish drive bright yellow ones, and the Nebraska Amish strictly use white tops. Modifying your buggy with racing stripes or fancy rims is a massive violation of church rules. They do not want anyone showing off on the dirt roads. The only allowed modification is a bright orange safety triangle, and even that caused a decades-long theological argument. 14. Forget about tropical beaches or luxury resorts. An Amish honeymoon sounds suspiciously like unpaid manual labor. After getting married, a young Amish couple does not jet off to a secluded island. Instead, they spend several months living with various relatives, traveling from house to house. Their romantic getaway consists of helping their aunts, uncles, and cousins deep clean their homes, chop wood, and do heavy farm chores. It is an intense crash course in domestic duties. Nothing says marital bliss quite like scrubbing a barn floor with your new spouse. 15. The Amish never actually go to church, at least not in the way you are imagining. Building a dedicated church structure is considered a prideful waste of resources. Instead, church services rotate between the homes and barns of the congregation members every other Sunday. When it is your turn to host, you have to clear out your barn, bring in heavy wooden benches, and prepare to feed over 100 people. It transforms regular Sunday worship into the ultimate highly stressful test of your local hosting abilities. 16. If an Amish person gets scammed, injured, or deeply wronged by an outsider, they will absolutely not take you to court. Suing someone is strictly forbidden. They firmly believe in the biblical concept of turning the other cheek and leaving ultimate judgment to a higher power. This makes them incredibly vulnerable to predatory business practices, but they refuse to hire lawyers or file lawsuits under any circumstances. It is a stunning display of pacifism, even when it ruins them financially. 17. Historical Amish courtship involved a bizarre practice called bundling, and it is exactly as awkward as it sounds. A young dating couple would be allowed to lie in the same bed together overnight to talk and get to know each other, but with a massive catch. They had to remain fully clothed, and the parents would physically place a large wooden board down the middle of the bed to separate them. Sometimes, the young woman was even sewn into a sack. It was a high-trust exercise in extreme self-restraint that makes modern dating apps look completely sane. 18. The Amish do not reject modern medicine. They will happily go to a hospital for surgery. However, owning commercial health insurance is strictly outlawed because it demonstrates a lack of faith in divine provision. Instead, the entire community acts as its own massive insurance policy. If someone gets slapped with a huge medical bill, the local church leadership simply organizes a collection, and every family chips in until the debt is paid in full. It is essentially a low-tech, highly efficient version of crowdfunding entirely without the internet. 19. The ultimate punishment in the Amish world is a terrifying social freeze-out known as the Meidung, or shunning. If you are baptized into the church and then break the rules or leave, you become a ghost. Your own parents are forbidden from eating at the same table as you, and your friends cannot do business with you. The goal is not to punish out of hatred, but to make you so utterly miserable and lonely that you repent and return to the community. It is a brutal psychological tactic designed to keep the flock entirely intact. 20. You will never see an Amish politician, because running for public office is completely forbidden. They view the government as a necessary worldly institution, but one they want zero part in managing. Voting is heavily discouraged, taking oaths is outlawed, and serving in the military is an absolute deal-breaker. They quietly pay their taxes and just want to be left completely alone by the government. In a modern era entirely consumed by toxic political warfare, completely ignoring the ballot box sounds somewhat like a peaceful, permanent vacation. 21. The Amish love a good game of volleyball or softball at community picnics, but joining a competitive sports league is an absolute sin. Why? Because competition breeds pride, jealousy, and a dangerous desire to crush your opponent. They play purely for exercise and community bonding. Nobody keeps official stats, there are no shiny trophies, and trash talking is practically a spiritual offense. Imagine playing a fierce game of softball where everyone is just aggressively polite to each other. Could you survive a sports game without screaming at the referee? 22. The Amish actually use massive modern tractors, but with one hilariously absurd modification. They strip off the rubber tires and replace them with solid steel wheels. Why ruin a perfectly good John Deere? Because rubber tires make the tractor too comfortable and easy to drive on paved roads. If you can drive it to town, you might easily leave the farm. The bone-rattling steel wheels guarantee that the machine stays strictly in the dirt. It is a brilliant, spine-crushing loophole to utilize modern power while preventing modern mobility. 23. When an Amish couple ties the knot, you will never see them exchanging expensive diamond rings. In fact, all jewelry is strictly forbidden because it is the ultimate expression of vanity and materialistic pride. Instead of wearing a shiny band to show he is taken, a man simply starts growing his massive untrimmed beard. The woman transitions from wearing a black prayer cap to a white one. A beard and a hat are their permanent relationship status updates. Honestly, it completely eliminates the financial panic of buying a 2-month salary diamond. 24. The entire Amish legal system, known as the Ordnung, is not actually written down anywhere. There is no official textbook, code of conduct, or sacred document you can study. It is an entirely oral tradition passed down through generations and heavily debated at community meetings. This means the rules can subtly shift depending on who the local bishop is. You essentially have to memorize thousands of hyper-specific social regulations just by watching your neighbors. Could you imagine navigating a strict legal system based entirely on local town gossip? 25. The Amish ban on electricity has absolutely nothing to do with thinking power is evil. They refuse to connect to the public power grid because doing so creates a physical and literal tie to the outside world, making them dependent on modern society. However, off-grid power is totally fine. They use massive diesel generators, complex pneumatic air pressure systems, and even solar panels to run their heavy woodworking machinery. They are not living in the Stone Age. They are just incredibly hardcore, hyper-efficient off-grid preppers. 26. Getting dressed in the morning takes a lot longer when the zipper is considered a sinful invention. Much like buttons, zippers are viewed as too modern, flashy, and unnecessary. They are a sign of rushing through life, which severely violates the Amish appreciation for slow, deliberate living. Clothes are fastened with straight pins or simple hooks. Think about that the next time you are frantically getting ready for work. They intentionally make their clothing physically inconvenient just to remind themselves to slow down. 27. Wall-to-wall carpeting might seem like a basic home comfort, but for the conservative Amish, it is a luxurious indulgence that promotes laziness. Their homes feature bare, polished hardwood or simple linoleum floors. The reasoning is deeply practical but slightly punishing. Bare floors are much easier to clean when you live on a muddy working farm, but they also prevent the home from feeling too cozy. The comfort of the physical body is always a distant second to the rigid discipline of the soul. 28. You probably take buttons for granted, but in the Amish world, a button is a gateway to vanity. For centuries, decorative buttons were flaunted by the wealthy elite to show off their status. To ensure absolute equality and humility, conservative Amish groups banned buttons on outer clothing. Instead, they use hidden hook-and-eye closures or simple straight pins to keep their clothes together. Yes, they literally pin their outfits shut every single morning. It makes getting dressed a mild safety hazard, all in the name of remaining perfectly humble. 29. Taking a refreshing dip in a pool is a logistical nightmare for the Amish. Modesty rules dictate that the human body must be completely covered in public, which essentially makes modern swimsuits totally illegal. Some conservative communities ban swimming entirely, viewing it as a frivolous recreational activity. Those who do swim usually do so in private farm ponds, fully clothed in heavy, dark garments. It completely redefines the concept of water resistance training. Would you be willing to swim laps wearing a full denim outfit? 30. In an Amish home, even the window treatments are tightly policed by the community. You cannot just hang up some trendy floral drapes you bought on sale. Curtains must be a solid, bishop-approved color, usually dark green or blue, and they must be pulled back at the exact same angle as every other house in the district. This extreme uniformity ensures no one is showing off a fancier interior to the neighbors walking by. It is basically the most intense, unyielding homeowners association you could ever possibly imagine. 31. If you ever see an Amish man sporting a full mustache, you are looking at an imposter. Amish men grow impressive beards after they get married, but the mustache is completely outlawed. Why? Because in 19th century Europe, elaborate mustaches were the ultimate symbol of the military and wealthy officer classes. Since the Amish are strictly pacifist, they banned the mustache to distance themselves from anything resembling war or state-sanctioned violence. It is an enduring fashion statement built entirely on historical anti-war sentiment. Imagine having to shave your upper lip every single morning just to prove you are a peaceful neighbor. 32. Do not expect a thrilling baby shower in the Amish community. While they generally have massive families, often with 7 to 10 children, celebrating the impending birth is considered far too worldly and incredibly boastful. The focus is placed entirely on the safe arrival of the child and trusting God's plan, rather than showering the parents with expensive, brightly colored plastic gadgets. A new baby is just expected to quietly integrate into the family workforce as soon as they are old enough to hold a broom. 33. Taking out a mortgage is not really an Amish thing because they essentially invented the ultimate high-speed community construction project, the barn raising. When a young couple needs a house or a farmer loses a barn to a fire, the entire community shows up at dawn. Hundreds of men, women, and children organize like an incredibly efficient army of ants, framing and roofing a massive structure in a single day. It is a stunning display of communal reliance that completely bypasses banks, contractors, and city permits. 34. You will never find an Amish farmer kicking back on the porch with a cold Bud Light after a long day in the fields. While they are not universally teetotalers, the conservative orders strictly prohibit the consumption of hard alcohol and commercially brewed beer. However, making your own dandelion or elderberry wine for medicinal purposes or special occasions is sometimes quietly tolerated by the local bishop. It is basically a very strict, homemade, and extremely localized approach to taking the edge off. 35. If an Amish person decides to completely leave the church and join the modern English world, the financial consequences are absolutely devastating, because they essentially operate in a massive communal economy. Leaving means you walk away with nothing but the clothes on your back. The family farm, the business, and the tightly knit support system are all completely surrendered. They are thrust into a hyper-capitalist society with an 8th grade education and zero credit history. It is an incredibly brutal financial reset button. 36. The concept of a relaxing 2-week summer vacation to Florida is completely foreign to the Amish. Taking time off just to sit around and do absolutely nothing is deeply frowned upon, as idle hands are considered a massive spiritual vulnerability. Instead, they might take a brief, highly purposeful trip to visit distant relatives in another state, usually traveling together by chartered bus or train. The journey itself is tightly supervised by the community to ensure no one is sneaking off to a casino. 37. When it comes to home decor, the Amish are the ultimate minimalists. Hanging any kind of artwork, family portraits, or decorative mirrors on the walls is strictly forbidden. The reasoning is that art serves no practical purpose and mirrors encourage dangerous levels of vanity and self-obsession. The only acceptable wall hangings are extremely practical items, like a simple calendar or perhaps a small, modest clock. Can you imagine living in a house where you literally cannot check your outfit before leaving? 38. Amish women are the unsung heroes of heavy physical labor, but you will never see them wearing a pair of practical denim jeans or work pants to do it. The biblical mandate that women should dress modestly is interpreted to mean they must wear long, simple, solid-colored dresses at all times, even when they are actively mucking out a barn, pulling weeds in the garden, or climbing a ladder. It is a staggering level of commitment to traditional gender roles over basic physical comfort. 39. The Amish do not believe in the concept of a teenager finding themselves. The intense, highly structured life leaves absolutely zero room for teenage angst or philosophical soul-searching. From a very young age, children are assigned daily chores that are critical to the family's survival, and their future roles as farmers or homemakers are completely predetermined. You do not get to dream of being an astronaut or a famous chef. You dream of a slightly better harvest. Honestly, is the modern pressure to figure out your entire life path really a better system? 40. If you think the Amish hate all modern conveniences, you are incredibly wrong. They just ruthlessly hack them to fit their strict religious rules. For example, they are allowed to use modern washing machines to handle massive piles of farm laundry, but they absolutely refuse to plug them into the electrical grid. Instead, they completely rip out the electrical motor and replace it with a noisy, gas-powered engine. It turns doing the laundry into an incredibly loud, intensely mechanical, and fully off-grid operation. 41. You might picture the Amish exclusively walking or riding in a buggy, but in many communities, the absolute hottest mode of transportation is a pair of inline skates. Because bicycles have pedals and gears, they are banned for providing too much independence. But rollerblades? Completely fine. It is genuinely surreal to see a young man in a traditional straw hat and suspenders aggressively speed skating down a country road just to get to his woodworking job. 42. The rule against owning a car is absolute, but the rule against riding in one is full of hilarious loopholes. The Amish happily utilize a massive shadow industry known as the Amish taxi. They will pay non-Amish locals serious cash to chauffeur them around in massive 15-passenger vans. They cannot put a key in the ignition themselves, but they will absolutely hire a personal driver to take them to a distant Walmart. How nice would it be to just ban driving and permanently hire a chauffeur everywhere you go? 43. Amish children play with dolls that look like they belong in a psychological thriller. Seriously, their dolls have absolutely no faces. No eyes, no nose, no permanent painted smile. This stems from a strict interpretation of the biblical commandment against creating graven images, mixed with the core Amish belief that all humans are equal in the eyes of God. Giving a doll a face would make it an individual, which breeds pride and vanity. So, kids just carry around blank cloth figures. 44. For a society that refuses to use zippers because they are too modern, their farming techniques are shockingly futuristic. The Amish do not insist on organic heirloom seeds. In fact, they are massive consumers of highly advanced, genetically modified crops and heavy chemical pesticides. If a scientific advancement increases their crop yield without plugging into the electrical grid, they will enthusiastically embrace it. It is a brilliant, totally unexpected capitalist mindset hiding behind a horse-drawn plow. 45. Competitive team sports might be strictly outlawed, but backyard trampolines are essentially a cultural obsession. Drive through an Amish neighborhood, and you will see massive trampolines behind almost every single farmhouse. Because jumping up and down does not involve keeping score, declaring a winner, or crushing an opponent, it completely bypasses the strict rules against prideful competition. It is just pure, unadulterated, bouncy fun hidden right out in the open. 46. Running a multi-million-dollar custom furniture business is pretty tough with a quill and ink, so the Amish invented their own totally sterilized computers. They use custom-built machines that look exactly like old-school word processors. They have absolutely zero internet capability, no video cards, and no games. They literally just process spreadsheets and print invoices. They stripped away all the toxic social media and endless distractions, leaving only raw productivity. Honestly, wouldn't your workday be drastically better on an Amish computer? 47. When you think of an Amish farm, you naturally picture cows, chickens, and maybe a few pigs. But some Amish farmers have discovered highly lucrative, wildly unexpected loopholes by raising exotic animals. Because there is no specific religious rule against breeding non-traditional livestock, you can actually find Amish farms raising herds of alpacas, ostriches, and even camels for their high-priced milk and wool. Seeing a towering camel casually grazing next to a traditional wooden buggy is an absolutely mind-bending visual. 48. If you love a good surprise party, Amish adulthood is going to heavily disappoint you. Once an Amish person is officially baptized into the church, usually in their late teens, celebrating their birthday essentially stops forever. Throwing a party to honor a single individual for simply aging is viewed as a massive trap for worldly pride. You might get a slightly nicer dinner or a quiet nod from your spouse, but there are absolutely no cakes, no candles, and definitely no singing. 49. The Amish strictly refuse to join the military and preach absolute pacifism. But when deer season opens, they transform into elite tactical snipers. Because hunting is classified as providing necessary food for the family rather than a violent sport, the technological rules suddenly vanish. They will happily buy incredibly expensive, state-of-the-art rifles equipped with high-tech telescopic scopes to guarantee a clean kill. They might not have electricity in their living room, but their gun safe looks like a modern tactical armory. Alright, we have made it through 49 mind-bending rules, and there is only one final item left. But before we reveal number 50, it is time for our final verdict. In our opinion, the absolute wildest rule on today's list has to be the proactive dentures. Willingly pulling out all your healthy teeth at 20 years old just to skip the dentist's bill is a level of hardcore practicality we simply cannot fathom. Do you agree with our verdict? Or did the loophole of the Amish taxi absolutely blow your mind? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And now, our final number. 50. The Amish actually have their own secret vacation capital, and it is located right in the middle of sunny Florida. A neighborhood in Sarasota called Pinecraft is essentially the Amish Las Vegas. When they travel there for the winter, the strict rules miraculously loosen up. You will see thousands of Amish elders riding massive three-wheeled adult tricycles, eating at all-you-can-eat buffets, and playing highly aggressive games of shuffleboard. It is a surreal, totally unexpected paradise where the hardest working people on Earth finally let their suspenders down. Ultimately, the Amish are not just stuck in the 18th century. They are brilliant architects of extreme loopholes, balancing absolute devotion with shocking practicality. If you had to permanently trade your modern freedom and technology for the absolute financial security of an Amish village, could you actually survive the culture shock? Let us know your thoughts below. Hit that subscribe button for more mind-bending histories, and we will catch you in the next video.